Hello everybody, welcome back to a kind of a random video. Didn't think I was going to do a video today, but then I had an idea pop in my head and wanted to kind of come up with this discussion for everybody out there. This idea stems from a conversation that I had with my aunt and uncle about a year ago. And I do apologize, I'm still fighting a virus here, but we got into a fairly heated, though friendly, discussion about music. And the topic at hand was, are the Beatles overrated? Now, this is not a Beatles video, but this is where the idea stemmed from. And we got into this big discussion about, were the Beatles popular because they were coming up at a time when everything was moving in a fast trajectory forward, music, art, movies, television, science, environmental issues, automobiles, technology, everything was moving at a fast pace in the 60s. I mean, America was, prosperous after, World War II. The former Army veterans were now in the workforce. There was a big baby boom. All this stuff was moving at a fast trajectory. And the argument was that the Beatles were just in the right place at the right time. It's not based on their musical merit. And obviously, I was in the camp of disagreeing with that statement. But that then led into some other conversations that I've had with friends, relatives about, just music in general. And the idea is there a line that we draw where, we can have differences with somebody on their musical taste, but we still accept and appreciate their likes? Or is there the other side of it where there's somebody that's so far gone that it's just, you don't want to hear anything they have to say about the music that they like because they don't like certain artists? Now, for me, I'm mostly in the camp of I accept what you like. I watch a ton of your channels out there, where 90% of the music you show, I don't care at all about. But I respect it and I appreciate that you show it. You heavy metal people show heavy metal. That's great. I like a tiny sliver of heavy metal music, but that's about it. People that show, you know, progressive or heavy hip hop or um, you know, weird electronic kind of moody music like that. Great. I'll watch your channels. I still listen. I'm still engaged, and I appreciate what you have to say. However, there are two artists that I love that if somebody comes to me and says that one of those artists is, you know, if okay, because I know I'm going to get some flack. There are some of you out there that would say one of these artists is, overrated. They don't get it, blah, blah. But they would, they might say that the other one was good. But I do know people that dislike one of these artists tremendously and then also think that the other artist is overrated. And of course, this is one of those artists, the Beatles. Again, not a Beatles video. This is just to bring about discussion. It can be a thread, whatever you want. This same aunt and uncle, um, have said that the Beatles are overrated. Great. There are people out there that, are coming up in music. They don't see the Beatles' excellence. They don't see the trajectory that they made in the public. They weren't there when the Beatles started, when they were introduced to America, um, especially through the Ed Sullivan Show. I can see, like, if all of the people think that the Beatles are Yellow Submarine or Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, I can see why people would be like, the Beatles, all they have is Yellow Submarine, because there are people like that. Don't I know the comments are going to be like, oh no, people know that there's more to the Beatles than that. You would be surprised that there are people out there that they think Beatles, they think Yellow Submarine, or they think Beatles, they think super trippy. When in fact the Beatles had like 4 or 5 trippy songs total out of their whole catalog. I can see, though I disagree, I can see why people might say like, oh, the Beatles are overrated because they don't know, they weren't there, they don't study, they're just casual fans. Whatever. I can see it. I can also see people not liking this guy. This is Bob Dylan, obviously. My favorite solo artist, favorite artist. The common argument, I don't understand him. The lyrics don't make sense. He's not a great singer. He's not a good guitar player. He, is a I don't know, a copycat. There are people that don't get Dylan and never will get Dylan. He's a polarizing artist, probably the most polarizing artist of all time, especially in the mainstream. You've obviously got, people like, your Tom Waits, your Nick Caves. I mean, even, I don't even, your Captain Beefheart, whatever. But they're not at the Dylan level. And, everybody can agree with that. Dylan is culturally one of the most important figures of the modern musical era. He's going to be studied the same way that Bach and Beethoven are studied in music classes at universities and music schools. But I get why people don't like Bob Dylan. I get it. However, if you are somebody, and again, I know people like this, if you are somebody that does not see his importance and their importance, you can like 100 artists that I like. You can say Tom Petty's the greatest person that's ever lived. You can love John Prine. You can love Tom Waits. You can love, Johnny Cash, bluegrass music, jazz, Frank Sinatra. You can love all that stuff. You can love it all. But I will not be somebody to take your music seriously. Even if all those artists are favorites of yours, if you are somebody that dislikes both the Beatles and Bob Dylan, I really don't have any interest in what you have to say about other music, because to me, if you can't see the merit in the Beatles and what they did, even if they're not your favorite of the classic British invasion groups, you might like the Dave Clark Five more, you might like the Stones more, whatever. But if you just kind of disregard their importance, there's not much hope for you. Same with Dylan. If I've got a buddy who we've been texting, and he said, he can't get into Bob Dylan. He's a big fan of Billy Strings, and Billy Strings does a lot of Bob Dylan music. He said he can do the songs. He's like, I can see the songwriting. I know it's there. I just can't do Dylan. That's fine. That's fine. Some people love, let's just say people love, Carole King songs. They might not like Carole King's voice, or, people might like, Jimmy Webb. He's a great example. Jimmy Webb doesn't have a great voice, but wrote some great songs for Glenn Campbell. People might I get it. Sometimes the songwriter is not what people want. Sometimes people want to hear, the Joan Baez, the Judy Collins, you know, um, the Turtles, whoever cover the songs, the Byrds. They don't want to hear the rough. They don't want to hear the grit behind the songs. They don't want to hear how the song's supposed to sound. Chris Christopherson, Townes Van Zandt, all those guys, those songwriters, all have that same, dilemma, I guess, in their breaking out into the public, consciousness. Dylan was one of the few that broke into superstardom because enough people got him to follow him. Enough people were behind his messages to support his music. So, what is this to say? Is there any, conclusion? I would say, we all have, there's big 5, 10 artists that we got to have everything that they do. We're going to defend them as if they're our own, blood relatives. And, we want other people to enjoy and experience what we're enjoying and experiencing. But at the end of the day, everybody is free to make their own decisions. With that to say, I am free to then tell you, if you do not understand Bob Dylan in any capacity, if you don't get his songs, the vocals, if you don't understand his impact, and if you don't understand the impact of the Beatles and what they did, then again, I'm sorry to tell you, I will hear you out, but it will be hard for me to hear you say, so and so put out the best album of all time. It was not even close to Bob Dylan, or I don't have time for it. I don't. So, kind of a rant. Again, idea that kind of came to me based on a couple different conversations I've had over the last year with relatives and a few friends. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this makes sense. If you want to kind of jump on a response to this, please do. Pick a couple of artists that you kind of feel the same way about. If people disregard them, like, do you have, do you want to hear what they have to say about any other music? I'll be interested to know. Thank y'all for trudging through this with me. I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. Please like the video, all that stuff that I don't always say. I really appreciate it. And yeah, always love talking to y'all in the comments. In the meantime, y'all be good. Take care. We'll talk to you in the next one. Bye now.